Hey guys, today we're going to remake Like a Villain by Bad Omens, and it's going to sound like this. Alright, I am super excited about this video. You guys have been asking for it for a long time, and it's gonna be worth the wait, I promise. This band's production is next level. They're doing things no other band is doing, and they produce it themselves, which definitely earns them my respect. So today, let's dive in and explore what makes Bad Omens sound the way they do. Why are their mixes so incredibly tight, clean, and polished? How do they get that epic cinematic vibe throughout their music? And what genres are they blending together to get that sound? We're gonna go over all of it, but before we jump in, if you enjoy these videos and you still haven't checked out my Modern Metal Pro course, go take a look because it's over 7 hours of me explaining the entire process in complete depth. So that's in the description, but right now, let's do this like a villain. So we're going to start off with some drums using the Mixwave Sleep Token kit, which first off is a beautiful sounding kit. And that kick straight away is so Bad Omens. It's got that huge low end and slappy top end. Let's program in the groove, so it's going to be like a crash on the 1 count. And have you guys ever noticed there's no cymbals in this beat except for the 1 count? That's the crazy thing about this song. We're going to talk about that a lot more later on because this song should not be as heavy as it is with like a super chill drum beat like that. But these guys are using some really smart production tricks to make it still hit super, super heavy. But before we talk more about that, let's just talk about this kit for a minute. And this kick drum, you can see with the EQ, I'm really focused on scooping those mids, boosting some slappy top end and some sub bass because that is the Bad Omens kick. It's very mid scooped and very full in those bass frequencies. And for the snare, you guys know I love to shamelessly use OTT on every snare, but listen to what this does. Just makes it explode. And I think I want to make some pretty generic EQ moves, but let's get some of that body in the low mids. Maybe cut a little mid-range. And maybe... ooh. Get some of that crack at 2K. Listen to this. If I turn off OTT in the EQ and then turn it on, it just turns the snare into like an explosion. Huge. And it needs to be. The snare in this track really pops, and we're going to take that further with some layering in a minute as well. But that's our main drum sound, and this is where the drums get interesting. One of my favorite things about this track is how layered and industrial the drums are. So right now we want to layer some subtle textures in place of where the cymbals would usually be. And cymbals, their job is really to add energy to a mix. So for this track to sound as energetic as it does without really using cymbals is pretty impressive, and this is one of the tricks that they're doing to get that. So I'm going to use UJam's Nemesis kit for this hi-hat. And this little percussion sound. That little hi-hat, I'm just going to make it straight 8th notes like that. And then let's add this thing on the offbeat for kind of this industrial. And also I'm going to... let's try that one. Oh yeah. The snare sound in this song is definitely layered with some like digital snares with real snares. So that little industrial snare helps us get a little closer to what we're hearing. So let's just keep that going like this. Whoa. That snare is hitting now. That industrial sample is perfect for the sound we want. And I want to take that even further by layering Damage on top, my favorite industrial drum plugin. Here's the sounds I've got from Damage. Very industrial, but in the mix, this is going to give the song what it needs. And I do feel like I can hear a lot of kind of 9 Inch Nails influence in this song. The percussion is very industrial. So I want to do like a... let's just go ahead and quantize that. Oh, that sounds so cool. And if we mute those 2 elements and then bring them in, listen how much energy they add without adding like the washiness of cymbals. It keeps the mix super clean, but gives it that energy. Let's also bring in a couple of explosive samples on the drop. This song really explodes out of nowhere, so... maybe this one. And... my explosion sample that I always use. Whoa, that sounds like thunder. And that's how this song starts, it just explodes. Love it. Okay, and to finish off the drop, we need one more sound, which is going to be my Argent Metal lead synth. For a kind of pitch bend like that right as it drops, let's lay it down. Okay, now we're ready for some guitars. Let's lay it down and then we'll break down what's going on. And on the right. And right here. Let's chop some things up like they do in the track. Let's just take that first note and cut out like this little glitch. And I think it does something like this. That's the sound. Little digital glitches like that are important for this track because it's such a simple riff. It's something this band are really good at, simple but effective. You know, they kind of always start with a basic core idea and then build the track out from that and add all these layers on top of it. Whereas if they started with a more complex idea, they wouldn't really have the space to do all those things. So for this tone, I tried a million different things and ended up deciding 14 Cali is the closest sounding amp sim. And the guitar tone in this song is very crisp and clear on the top end, but also very powerful and full in the low mid range. So the way I'm achieving that in 14 Cali is first off, I have this grind pedal all the way up. So this tightens up the low end, dials down the muddiness, and just boosts that top end. Listen to what it's doing. So that already helps a lot, and you can see here I also have the treble full on the amp head. We'll talk more about that in a second, but just go into the graphic EQ here. Also, you can see I'm really scooping the mids, not really touching the top end, but really boosting that low mid range so we get that fullness down there. This is basically, again, just to keep it clean. They have such clean sounding mixes, so we don't want these like washy frequencies. So for me, that's almost there now. The only other thing I want to do is just bring in a pitch shifter and blend in some low octave. You guys have seen me do this before, and I don't want to go crazy with it, but this is going to help with that low mid range to just make it feel a bit fuller while we still have that clarity on the top end. Just gives it a bit more of that menacing, nasty sound. And coming back to this treble knob, usually I wouldn't turn this all the way up because usually we would have cymbals in there, so all of those treble frequencies would kind of get harsh. But because the cymbals are keeping out the way, we can really kind of fill that space with the guitar and make sure that the mix still sounds energetic like we were talking about. We're kind of finding those cymbal frequencies in the guitar tone, so it has that sound, but without the washy cymbals clouding up the mix. Okay, time for the bass. So let's keep some of these drums going because the drums and the bass continue basically repeating into the verse. Let's track it. Okay, I love the bass sound in this track, especially in the verse. It just sounds so evil in the back there. And I'm actually starting this bass sound off with the Ampeg SVT3, which is not the most like modern metal amp sound, but it's definitely got a mid-scooped sound, which just like with the guitars is what we want with the bass. So that's a good start, but I want to put two bass distortions in front of that amp. Firstly, Dark Glass Ultra for some of that high mid-range grind. And I'm going to kind of not really affect the EQ. Yeah, something like that, not too aggressive. And I'm going to pair that with S Drive for more of that low mid growly sound. Perfect, that sounds great. So we have the high mid distortion from Dark Glass and the low mid growl from the S Drive. Okay, and we're still far from done with layering things up, and it only gets weirder from here. So next I'm going to use a synth pad using Farlight. It's hard to work out exactly what the chords are because it's such an ethereal sound, but I'm pretty sure I've got it with this. Very beautiful chords and beautiful harmonies in there. And I've added a flanger effect to this sound, so we kind of get this movement. Bad Omens don't really use like static synth sounds. It tends to evolve as time goes on, so it's kind of got this. Let's lay that down. And this sound not only adds that dreamy texture to the mix, but it also fills in some of that mid-range that we're missing. We've been cutting so much mids from the bass and the kick and the guitars, and this is a very mid-range sound, so it makes the mix sound a bit fuller, a bit warmer, but without us losing any of the clarity in the guitars or bass where we cut the mids. Okay, 2 more layers and then we're done with this main part and we'll finish the verse and chorus. So firstly, there's this really weird synth sound hitting the offbeat, like this. So I've put together this sound in Vital just using a noise wave and some filter automation so we get that wow, wow. Again, we don't want it to be static, we want it to be moving and sweeping. And also to give this sound more of a kind of mangled digital edge, I'm running it through a ring modulator in Cubase. So if you listen with this off, just gives it a bit more of that weird rumble kind of sound, which is what I'm hearing in the track. So and the final layer for this part, but still a very, very important layer, is going to be a synth sound following the guitars. And usually in these videos, you guys see me layering these super harsh, distorted synths alongside guitars. But in this song, the main synth actually sounds really quite normal to me, kind of like a dark pop, like Lady Gaga, The Weeknd kind of sound, like slightly distorted, but also just kind of like an 80s saw synth. So I've put together this sound in Vital. And the important thing about this sound is you can see I've got one oscillator an octave down, one at a fifth up, 7 semitones, so a fifth, and one just in the normal octave. So it's almost like a chord, just because that's what I'm hearing in the song. It is hard to hear because it blends with the guitar, but if you listen really carefully, there's definitely a sawtooth synth with like some fifths and some octaves in there, following along with the guitar. So let's lay it down and see if you can hear how this fills out the guitar sound and just gives it a bit more of a dark pop sound, a bit less like obviously metal sounding. I'll mute that track and then bring it in and just listen to the guitars, see if you can notice it. Okay, and to finish off the verse, there's a couple of quick little glitchy guitar moments again, so let's lay those down. Okay, and for this one here, this note wants to be the same thing we did before, just a quick little glitch. So it's going to sound like this. Yes. So now coming to the chorus, this is where these guys finally get to shine, and it's going to stay very simple. Everything in the chorus here is basically just built around the vocals, just about supporting the vocal melody. 2 crashes on the drop, and then kicks again. They're just going to repeat a nice simple rhythm. Let's get the guitars and bass for the chorus here as well. There's all single notes on guitar as well, another way that they keep things sounding clean. Power chords sound awesome, but a single note is always going to sound a little bit cleaner. Let's get it on the right. Okay, and in the background of the chorus here, there's some amazing vocal harmonies going on, which is probably just Noah going crazy, layering shit up. But honestly, it's so heavily processed that it's hard to tell whether it's that or a vocal synth pad like Farlight, so I'm just going to use Farlight again. And again, it's a very ambient, ethereal texture, so it's hard to make out exactly what the chords are, but I think it's something like this. See, these are the things you don't necessarily notice in the mix, but they just make it sound huge and epic and cinematic. If that's really vocal harmonies, hats off to Noah for putting in the work, because that must have taken a long time. Love these chords. And with that, there we go guys, Bad Omens Like a Villain broken down and replicated. What a banger, cannot wait to see what these guys do next. This was such a fun and interesting one to make. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did, and if you did, please consider hitting the like and subscribe if you want more content like this. And like I said at the start, if you want the ultimate guide from me on every step of the process, nothing left behind the scenes, go check out the course in the description. I could not be more proud of it, and for everyone that's already diving in, thank you so much. It's been amazing to see how it's leveling up your guys' work watching this course. Thank you to everyone that's jumped on board. If you haven't, go check it out. Thank you so much for watching if you made it this far, and I'll see you in the next one.